This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, Molly Henery returns to the show to talk about Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, and Talk to Me. But first, Donna is back to talk about what we've been up to in the last week. How's it going, Donna?
Hey Robert, it's going really well. Now you said that, now I gotta stay and listen to that.
It's a really good
I
episode.
just recently watched Talk to Me like this year, and I was so late to the party, and then I was like,
Oh,
man, that
wow.
movie's fantastic. So yeah, I'm good. Other than trying to stay cool because now it's officially summer and it's hot as balls
Yes.
here.
Yes, we just did pass Midsummer, which
Yeah.
leads into my first thing that I'm bringing.
See what I do there?
Right? You set me up and I followed right through. But yeah, no. So I got to Katrina and I got to go to see the A24 IMAX presentation of Midsummer, the director's cut, which was great because one, I already own the director's cut, so I've seen it. But I had never seen Midsummer on the big screen before. I missed it when it came out originally.
Right.
I wasn't quite into horror just yet, not as heavy as I am now. And so, and I was into horror, but I wasn't going to the movies as often as I do.
Hmm.
And so, I ended up catching it on video once it came out. But yeah, so this was a really great chance to see it on the big screen for once. And we'd previously gone to go see Ari Aster's Hereditary like a few months ago as well um, on IMAX. So it's really cool that uh, A24 is doing this this year. So I'm excited. They've got Everything Everywhere All at Once coming up in August, but I
Oh
don't
wow.
think we're gonna go see that because we actually did see that one on the big screen when it came
Oh,
out.
okay.
So um, as much as I love that movie and I really do, I'm okay with skipping that one for this time. But
How was it going to see this with Katrina, with your daughter? Because
well,
she'd not seen the director's cut, had she?
she had not seen the director's cut, but she had seen the movie before. But I only think she saw it once before. So it was definitely an interesting experience for her as well. And there's something different about seeing it in a theater compared to
Mm-hmm.
seeing it in at home. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for the home experience. Don't get me wrong. See a movie however you can. I'm not one of those snobs that's like you have to go see it in the theater.
Right.
Screw that. We're a whole generation of people who never got to go to the theater or rarely got to go to the theater, and we grew up in the VHS era. So there's a ton of movies that we love that we saw in grainy VHS
Oh yeah.
on our CRT TVs and stuff. So now that we have 4K big screen, super awesome TVs and stuff like that, you can have a much better experience at home than at the theater,
Well,
bar
I will
none.
say I actually did see not the director's cut, but I did see Midsummer in theaters, and
That's
I
cool.
basically had to drag my husband to go see it because he had no interest whatsoever. And I kind of had to sell it to him a little bit, and I was like, "Well, people are comparing it to The Wicker Man, but I don't think it's going to be." And he was like, "Oh, let's
Uh,
go." So once we got there, of course,
Sucker.
yeah, but he enjoyed it so much, and I
That's
was
good.
so glad that I got to see that because I did not get to see Hereditary when it was new in theaters. So that was an experience I really enjoyed, and I can only imagine how great it was on IMAX with the director's cut and all of
Oh
those
yeah.
extra scenes that really piece everything a little bit more together, like flesh it together a little bit more.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun watching it with an audience who also has seen it before, so we all chuckle at the same parts and
Mm-hmm.
everything, because there's definitely some funny parts uh, uh
Oh yeah.
to laugh at, and so it's really fun to do that. And plus, I was wearing a Midsummer t-shirt, and so were other people. Um, and so it was really cool. There was a couple of women that were sitting next to us, and as soon as I came up, "Oh, nice t-shirt," and I was like, "Yeah, I like yours too. I actually own that one also because I own several Midsummer t-shirts because Midsummer is one of my favorite movies. So
Yeah. Definitely one
uh,
of mine.
definitely was super great to be able to see it um, in IMAX and the director's cut. So, because the director's cut, like the original movie is perfectly fine. The theatrical
Hmm.
cut is perfectly fine, really good if you've only ever seen that. But the director's cut helps deepen some aspects, mostly just the Christian and Danny
And Danny,
relationship
yeah.
and how why it fell apart as easy as it did. Because it like in the original cut, yeah, I mean you can see it. I mean Christian's not a great person, but in the director's cut you see just it even more. And that's, I mean, and to be fair, Christian's, as much as he's not a great person, he's not a terrible person
He's
either, you
not,
know.
yeah.
He, I've seen this online too, is like, post a picture of someone who deserved to die, and then it's always Christian in the bear suit. I'm like, dude did not deserve to die. He's a terrible boyfriend, but he did not deserve to
Take his
die
ass to the
for that.
curb, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know, necessarily go
exactly.
so far as to burn a motherfucker up, but
Yeah.
I don't
But
know if
yeah,
I need to go to that extent.
yeah.
I'm kind of one of those people where I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna leave your bitch ass, and that's gonna be the end of it.
But
But
don't get me wrong, it makes for a really cathartic ending,
oh
and
my
yeah,
gosh,
it's
such a
really
great
great.
ending.
Yeah. So,
Um, which
but
we've
yes.
gushed about this movie before,
Oh
so
yeah, yeah. Please go check out my earlier episode about Hereditary and Midsummer with Donna. So and we talk a little bit about some of his short films too. Not a lot. And I really hesitate to suggest his short films because one of them is really uncomfortable, and I'm not going to tell you which one. You'll find out on your own.
it's very
Um,
cringy.
but it's not even just cringy. It's
You
like,
need a
oh
shower
yeah,
after. You need like a
you need
soak wake
several
shower.
showers. Um, but what was I? This guy has massive family issues. He needs therapy.
He probably has the
Um,
best family life. You know what I
oh, he
mean? He
probably
probably is
does
like has
too,
a very cushy upper middle class
right?
brain. I'm
Um,
sorry.
But
Um,
uh but I do want to say that Hereditary Midsummer, I'm gonna be recovering these but with my daughter on a new podcast that she and I are gonna be doing, um, which we're calling Intro to Horror 101.
oh, how
And that,
cool.
yeah, and that should be coming up hopefully sometime soonish. But I just wanted to kind of put it out there, keep it on your radar. Basically what it is it's kind of what the original concept of Creepy and Geeky was supposed to be, was
Hmm.
that Katrina and I would talk about new horror movies. She'd be introduced to a new horror movie she'd never seen, and then we would talk about it. But then my son Harrison wanted to get involved, and then they both uh, had school and work commitments that prevented them
Right.
from doing it regularly, and so it morphed and changed into what it is now. But I wanted to get back to it with her and kind of restart it. It's going to be a very irregular, maybe a once a month type of podcast, but I definitely wanted to get back into that. And since she'd never seen Hereditary until we saw it at the theater, and now she'd seen the director's cut of Midsummer, then I wanted to make sure that we got to talk about it. So
Man, I'm
hopefully
really
coming
looking
soon.
forward to that. That's
Yeah,
going to be interesting. Now, is she going to bring you horror movies as well, or just
yeah. So that's the idea behind it, is that I want her to tell me about a movie that she wants to see or wants to like watch, and then we'll talk about it then after we watch it. So
very
yeah.
cool.
And we'll talk about, like, it'll be like old stuff and new stuff. So say there's a new horror movie coming up or something like that, we'll go watch that, and then we'll talk about that on the next podcast or whatever, however it works out. So we'll be doing that as often as we can, hopefully at least once a month. So
And what's the title of it again?
Intro to Horror 101.
I have to look forward to that. That's a pretty
Yeah.
cool name.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm excited, and I love to hear Katrina. I love to hear her thoughts on things are so great.
Her and her potty mouth, man, she curses more than I do.
I don't think that's true at all. I mean, I know y'all don't curse as much as me, but we're getting
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But yeah, so I don't curse a lot on the show. I curse a lot in general. So
I do both, sir.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
No,
a
I know.
multi-talented woman. Um, so
So anyway, that leads into you. What are you bringing to us this week?
So, I really don't have a whole lot. So the first thing I do want to talk about is A24. Man, I'm loving them. A24 and
Hmm.
Apple apparently are doing a murder mystery film titled The Wives.
Hmm.
And
I hadn't heard
I'm
about this.
interested in this one because Jennifer Lawrence is going to be in it and she's also a
Oh,
producer.
cool.
So not a whole lot is out about it, but basically it's allegedly partly inspired by all of those Real Housewife of
Yeah.
whatever franchise. And I'm interested. I really hope a little bit more leaks out about what this is going to be about because I love me a murder mystery.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So I'm sold if it's about, those kind of upper snooty bitches killing each other.
Well,
I definitely want to see it.
and I love Jennifer Lawrence, so
Oh,
like,
me too.
like I don't understand any of the hate she gets, but like I've always thought she's a phenomenal actress, so
Yeah.
that's exciting. So
Yeah.
A24 murder mystery, Jennifer Lawrence, sold.
Yeah.
So
Sold. I figured it would be a good one
easy
for you.
sell, yeah, easy sell for me. So
My son is always so funny because when I start getting excited about movie projects and stuff, and then I'll say the actress, I said Jennifer Lawrence. He's like, "Mom, start with that. Start with Jennifer." So that's I always have to focus and go with what I know he'll want at the beginning.
right,
Jennifer Lawrence, what about Jennifer Lawrence? And then I can go into the rest of it. He's like,
right.
Mom, start with that. That's the selling point.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
A man after my own heart.
So
Oh,
that
too
was my
funny.
my first little blurb. So I don't have a whole lot on that, but when there's
Okay.
more drips and drabs come out, then I'll probably come back to it.
Okay, cool. Well, I did want to talk to you about a couple of new trailers that dropped over the last couple of days on movies that we talked about uh, uh, previously in our segments like these that we do, our weekly segments.
Hmm.
We talked about The Front Room not too long ago. You had brought that to my attention, and the
Oh yeah,
trailer just dropped this week, which was fantastic. It
yeah.
looks uncomfortable as all
It looks
hell.
so creepy. Oh my
Oh
fucking
man.
god.
Well, and so this is what this is what's kind of interesting too. As a black woman married to a Caucasian man, I want to hear your perspective on this trailer.
Well, I can identify with it. I definitely would say that. I absolutely love my mother-in-law, though. I mean, this woman is a redneck through and through, but she's like the nicest one you'll ever meet.
That's cool.
So I can't identify quite as much as the Brandy character. I think her character's named Belinda in the movie,
Yeah,
but
Belinda. She really pronounces it at the end there.
yeah.
It's
But
Belinda.
Belinda. Uh, but there's a lot of, at least in my opinion, my takeaway from the trailer was seems to be a lot of religious or cultish type activity going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And then her being pregnant doesn't bode well for me. I feel
No.
I feel
Kind of
very
feels
uncomfortable.
Rosemary's Baby a little bit, and yeah. Yeah, I was getting some Rosemary's Baby, some Hereditary vibes. Definitely,
Yeah.
it's definitely an A24 movie.
Definitely.
So it had the A24 vibes for
We
sure.
sit here and try to play A24 Mad Libs all the time because it feels like that's what we get. And it works
Right?
every fucking time. It always hits. It doesn't matter what
Yeah,
they do. But
right.
everything about this is uncomfortable. Having a mother in law that you now have to have live with you. The
Oh
woman
man.
just walks in and commandeers the nursery and she's like, this is my room now. And
I mean,
I
okay.
mean,
So don't get me wrong, that was bitchy as all hell, but it's the very front room, and she obviously has a hard time walking. It makes sense for her to be in that very front room. So I mean, it'd just be like that to me as the person bringing her in. We'd be like, well, it's the nursery right now, but we can make it your room. So but I get that they are like being put upon in this instance. It's just like, dang. So it's just funny.
yeah, and the mother-in-law being so frail. I think there was even like a scene where she's hurt and she said that Belinda pushed her into the table or
Oh
something.
my god,
And I'm
yeah.
just like, how do you combat that? Because she's an elderly woman And
In-home cameras. That's how you do it.
right.
I've
You
seen
right.
so
You
I've seen
100%
so many
right.
videos. I've seen so many like stupid videos. Like I like whenever I'm like tired and don't want to focus on anything, I just watch YouTube videos and like the funny videos of people doing stupid crap.
Right.
And so there's always people who put cameras in their house, and I'm like, why do you have cameras inside your house? Number one, why are you recording the ongoing? Like, I don't want anybody to see that stuff. I don't want to see that stuff. So, so like that just is always bizarre to me. But like seriously, if somebody's being like creepy like that, that would be the first thing I did was put up cameras inside the house. Be like,
Yeah,
nope,
you're
nope,
not
this is
wrong.
not. I'm not getting. You're not getting away with this crap.
I
So,
love these type of movies too because the husband is always oblivious to every
oh
goddamn
my
thing.
god,
And then I
it's always
always
the
wonder,
it's
are
always a
you
hysterical. It's the hysterical woman trope.
right?
It's a little annoying. Don't get me wrong, but
No, it's a fucking lot annoying. I mean, because like you said, it's definitely got some Rosemary's Babies vibe.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like dealing with motherhood and your hormones. Obviously, he's going to think that she's overreacting because she's pregnant. Yeah, no, fuck all that. I know when something's not right.
right.
Pregnant or not, you should be like, oh yeah, this is fucked. We got to put her in a home. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm sorry.
I'm saying. But yeah, no, but it looks really good. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, please go check out that trailer. It's really cool. So
Yeah, it really was. And that was really odd because we just talked about it like maybe 2 weeks ago, and I
yeah,
did not expect to see a trailer this quickly. So,
yeah, no, I was excited as soon as it popped up on my suggestions, and I was like, oh yeah, sweet. I remember her talking about this. So,
plus,
but
it's nice to see more Black ladies in horror. And I don't think
yeah,
Brandy has been in a horror movie since I Still Know What You Did Last Summer or whatever that
yeah,
sequel was called.
yeah, you're right.
So, yeah, so it's interesting. A pregnant woman, once again, the
Yeah,
Rosemary's Baby, the Hereditary vibes, all of that. And I think even during the trailer, she brought up something about them being white supremacist or something, and I was just like, oh,
yeah,
yikes! This is
yeah.
gonna be
There's a lot of
weird.
yikes there. Yeah,
But yeah, if y'all haven't seen the trailer for the A24, The Front Room, please go and watch it. It is definitely one to look for and have on your radar.
yeah, absolutely, 100%. The other trailer that I was talking about is the for the movie Smile 2, which if everybody remembers, the marketing on this on the original Smile was fantastic because they had lots of weird people in public
Ugh,
smiling, really weird. is
God
really is
damn
really
it.
skeeving Donna out right now. Donna does not like smiles.
I don't like unnatural smiles. I like people smiling, but not like that shit unnerves me, Robert. You have no idea.
So yeah,
Ugh.
so it looks this new one looks fantastic because they've already started. They had before the trailer, they'd already started doing the marketing on this with a new singer who was out. I think it was Riley Sky or Sky Riley.
Mhm.
Um and like even has a song on Spotify, like social media all over the place and everything. And it was crazy what they were gonna do with it and like try and act like it was like this new singer that was coming out. Everybody knew though. Immediately, as soon as all this came out, everybody's like, "Yeah, this is for Smile too. We got you. We're out, we're with you right now." Um, but so then the trailer came out and this trailer looks great. Like I'm like it's so bizarre that both this and the movie Trap are coming out this year and they're both like involved like all this like in the world of pop music.
Right.
So it's like something in the zeitgeist right now. It's really cool. So, but yeah,
Pop
I'm
stars are
excited. It looks
creepy.
fantastic.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about Justin Timberlake, so pop stars are creepy. But
That's so funny. This is gonna
but
ruin. Have you seen the memes for it? Like everybody's going off on the memes. This is gonna ruin the tour. What tour? The world tour.
the world tour. Oh
Oh,
man.
like
So yeah,
yeah,
I'm not going to go see Smile 2. I'm just gonna put that out in the ether for y'all here because I really am creeped out by those unnatural frozen smiles like that. The first smile about had me digging my nails so far into my husband. I'm pretty sure he still has the marks from me watching the first smile movie. However, I will watch it at home because that way I can freak out in peace and nobody has to look at me throwing my popcorn everywhere. But it does look incredibly good and creepy, and I'm starting to, my fear is lessening a little. It's not quite as severe as it used to be. However, I know without even seeing this movie, the ending to this is going to probably knock me on my ass because with her being a pop star, I feel like the entire world is going to have this curse.
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah,
nervous as hell.
yeah, yeah. That's gonna be definitely something crazy because broadcasting yeah, it's gonna be insane.
That's one of my fears about this because it makes me think excuse me, it makes me think of that movie. I don't know if you remember Blumhouse's Truth or Dare.
I have not seen that one.
Okay, well, I won't ruin the ending for you, but I will say that it's akin to the ring, what they end up doing
Oh,
with the
okay.
curse. So that's why I feel like Smile 2 is going to end on a very super mega downer.
Right.
But kudos to Parker Finn because that the first one, honestly, if they had never made a sequel, that was like a standalone amazing horror film. So
Yeah.
I hope Kyle. I well, it ended with Kyle Gallner, so I'm kind of hoping it begins with him, just so I can see
Yeah,
him
I
briefly.
suspect that's probably what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
So,
he's becoming a very big horror person, and I am
yeah.
here for all of this.
Oh,
It's another one of my
absolutely.
secret boyfriends, just so y'all know. I've
Not
claimed all
not
these
so
people.
secret.
They don't know. They don't know. They have no clue. I mean, it's a secret to them.
Right.
But yeah, that was the other. I was going to mention that, but I'm glad that you brought both of those trailers up. So that literally was all I had
Oh, really?
to the
Okay.
table. Yeah, literally that's it. That's all I had.
All right. Well, I do have a couple more things. So this week I'm been trying to watch a lot more. I had originally in the beginning of the year set myself a goal of trying to watch one movie a day, one
Mm-hmm.
new to me movie a day. And it could be in any genre. It didn't matter what it was, just something new that was like on one of my various watch lists or in my, physical collection that I have not watched yet. So, for one reason or another, I have not been meeting my target. January was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I was over the mark on that. But every month since has been like not even close to half. So I've been trying to, buckle down and, watch something new every day. Um, so the other night I have all but one of the Vestron video collector series discs. Um, so thankfully I've managed to get all but the one, and the one's just not available anymore. It went out of print and is no longer available. I think they don't have the rights to it anymore.
Oh,
So yeah, I started watching. The first movie that they put out was Chopping Mall, but I'd already watched that recently, so
right.
I just went into the second movie, which was Blood Diner, which I'd never seen before. And I know you talked about this on your podcast. And it sounded like a wild ass movie, and it was a wild ass movie. So it definitely is weird. But it was fun at the same time. There was a lot of it was weird in one of those ways, and I can see why it's become one of those cult classic films. That it's one of those movies that you just kind of put on when you want something just really dumb, and kind of over the top in kind of the best way, because like the performances are just like and like you can tell people are just having fun. There's a
They're just
sequence
having fun making this movie.
Yeah, there's a sequence where one of the characters runs over this guy and keeps going back and forth over him because the guy keeps not dying. And so it's just the funniest thing because the guy's having so much fun just like gleefully running over the guy and everything. It's just so dumb. And so I was just like, okay, you know what? This is so dumb, but I'm in. Um, and don't get me wrong, it's not a great movie by any means. And I'm really surprised it got made, let alone released. But it's still fun. It's a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen it, check it out, and then go watch or go listen to Donna's episode on her podcast about it. Because
I am with you 100%. It's just a lot of dumb fun, and it
yeah,
really it did shock me that they one made this film, and two that they let a female director do what she
yeah,
did. Jackie Kong, in my opinion, you know, she should have been a way bigger director, a way bigger talked about person, which is why I kind of gave her a little shout out. And
yeah.
I mean, she's ballsy, man. The stuff she does in this movie, it's just, I mean, they're tasteless sight gags,
Oh
obviously,
yeah,
but you just end up having so much fun. And I Mystery Science Theater the shit out of this film whenever we watch it because it's just that kind of movie. You just and it's got a lot of TNA. Let's not forget that it's the
yeah.
'80s, so we got a lot of TNA. So if y'all don't like the humor or you don't like the subject matter, you got boobs. I mean, there's
Lots and
something there for
lots of boobs.
everybody.
There's
And
the interesting thing about this too is that there's a sequence with a nude aerobics class that they're
yes,
filming and everything, and it's so funny too because later on there was somebody who made nude aerobics videos, and that's where they got the idea from was from
get
this
the hell
movie.
out
No,
of
they got it like weird. You would think that would just be something you would normally just think of, oh yeah, this would be even better if they were nude. But no, they saw Blood Diner and they're like, you know what, let's monetize that.
I
So
would never be able to go to a nude aerobics class. I would be too busy like covering my. I wouldn't be able to work out. I just couldn't do it.
yeah,
Holy goodness! But you know, clearly, at least from what I remember reading about Jackie Kong and her marvelous take on film, this was her kind of tribute to Herschel Gordon Lewis and
right.
to the whole blood feast, those type of schlocky horror movies. And God bless her, man. She really did her thing. Whether you like it or not, this woman clearly gave zero fucks and did this movie.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad you enjoyed it for at least for the time period that it was made in. It's definitely fun, and it's my go-to when I want, like you said, when you want to check out and you just want something on in the background that's hilarious. Every now and
Right.
then you look up and you catch something, you see some Hitler people wrestling or
Oh my
whatever.
God. Yeah. No, and that's what's so funny. It's just like the weirdest thing, just that there's so many weird sight gags and other things, and like everybody in it is like non-professionals. Like they peppered the most of the cast are people that they just like that they hired like people who were in punk bands and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
because it was a super like low budget movie and they had no money for it. So the whole audience, like the whole like extras and everything like that are just like literal like punk fans and stuff like that that they got from other the areas and stuff. It's just really bizarre. It's
Yeah,
like
it's like the
if you
best of
like
guerrilla filmmaking ever.
yeah, so if you like low budget schlocky horror movies, check out Blood Diner because it's definitely for you. So, and you've probably already seen it, and I'm just late to the game. So, but the other one I watched, and I've only gotten one more in so far, is the original Waxwork movie with Zach Galligan, Anthony Hitchcock's his first
It's so
directorial.
good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely got some weird moments in it. It feels like sometimes it's trying too hard. If this one's one of those ones where they're trying to be funny and it doesn't always come off that way. It doesn't come out quite right. Um, and so but and that doesn't really detract from it so much. But there's a couple of really progressive moments in this too. The one girl that Zach Galligan's always trying to get with, she's just sleeping around with multiple people, and he just wants her for himself, and she's just like,
Mhm.
no, I'm not going to be tied down to any one person, and this was what 88 when this movie came out, so pretty fairly progressive for the time, and
Right.
so it's really cool. And then one of the characters has an epiphany moment about her sexuality, and or about her kinks anyway. And so it's like very progressive for the time period. So I was actually shocked not shocked, but I was actually surprised, pleasantly surprised at those moments. But it's a good movie. It's fun. It definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. And I'm looking forward to watching the sequel here very soon.
I don't even know if I've ever watched the sequel, to be honest. I think I've watched
That's funny.
the first one so many times just because I like Zach Galligan and I also like Deborah Foreman and,
Yeah.
I think David Warner is in this as well.
Yes, David
A lot of
Warner.
people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach Galligan's in the second one, but Deborah Foreman's not in the second one because Deborah Foreman was dating Anthony Hickox during the filming of this first one, and they had a messy breakup, so she did not come
Holy
back for the
crap.
sequel. So that's why you don't date your stars, people.
Yeah, man. Deborah Foreman she was eating in the 80s. Like she was
Hmm.
everywhere, like in romantic comedies and horror movies and
April
just
Fool's Day, yeah,
yeah, she was in a lot.
yeah,
Um, Valley Girl, I think was the first thing I ever saw her in with Nicolas
yeah.
Cage when he was like all of 20 something years old. But
Right,
I really like her in the horror genre. Like that's
yeah.
my favorite ones to watch with her.
And it's funny too because I mean she was in a bunch of stuff in the '80s, and then she just kind of went
Fizzled
away
out.
from it. Yeah, and I think it's just one of those cases where she just got tired of doing it and went on to go do something else.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
the last thing,
cool.
yeah, but the last thing I want to talk about was I have a new podcast. I think I've mentioned it before in these segments that I'm doing with my son. It's called As Father and Son, and it's a Star Wars podcast. And right now we are currently talking about the new Disney Plus show, The Acolyte. So we've
Oh,
got yeah, so we've got two episodes up so far. The first episode's on episodes 1 and 2 of the Acolyte, and our second episode is on episode 3. So, and we should have our third episode up hopefully soon. His schedule's been his and my schedule have not been coinciding the last few days, so we haven't been able to record. So hopefully it'll be up before the next episode of the show comes out. But we'll see. But yeah, no, we're having a lot of fun talking Star Wars and trying to bring a more positive, um, non-toxic, um, uh, leaning towards the Star Wars. Because again, like we talk about it on the show too. Is like there's so much toxicity in the Star Wars community, the Star Wars fan community. It's really hard to, and I think that's maybe why we don't have much of an audience yet. But I'm hoping some people come and check it out. It's a fun conversation. We just talk about the show and about the various connections it has with both the canon stuff and with the old Legends material, and just kind of get into our theories and all that. So
now I do
it,
want to ask: Are you doing this? Are you and Harrison doing this every week, or is this like every other week? I'm just
current,
curious.
currently we're aiming for every week, sometime after the current episode. Once the Acolyte is done, we'll probably go into more of a monthly schedule. Just again because our schedules don't always mesh up well
Hmm.
enough to record. So I'm hoping that we will do it monthly, and once that happens, we're going to start into the movies. We'll start with A New Hope, and then every episode will just kind of go into a new either movie or TV show or something else like that. We'll just kind of break down, give our thoughts, and kind of you know from the perspective of a father who grew up
Hmm.
during the original trilogy era and a son who grew up in the prequel trilogy era, and see where our thoughts and feelings align on them and where they differ. So
I like the titles that you're coming up with. These are really cute. I mean, that one especially. Oh my goodness.
well,
And you're right. Star Wars fans are so goddamn toxic. Why
there's
I do not
so
know.
much toxicity in
I
the
do not
community right
know.
now. It's not everybody. There's a lot of people who are great fans who really enjoy Star Wars and are here for it and here for every bit of it and understand that Star Wars is not something that has been like this glowing, the best ever thing. It's not. Star Wars has always had ups and downs. It's
Hmm.
always had some of the most goofy shit in it too. Um, and so if you can't understand, if you can't take the good with the bad and find, just find your way through it. And that's kind of what we're getting to it with the show, is just kind of like, here's our thoughts on it, you
Right.
know, good or bad, just our own personal feelings on it. But we
Hmm.
don't delve into that toxicness, because at the end of the day, we just love Star
You
Wars.
just love nerding
And
out.
we love,
That's the
and
thing about it. Like
yeah,
if we're all nerds, why does there have to be
yeah.
so much issues with
Uh,
you? These are fictional characters.
and the people who are being toxic, they're just toxic people in general. They're the kind of
they
people who
they
just,
really are.
they hate so they get clicks and they get engagement. That's really all it is.
That's
Honestly,
literally all it is.
I honestly don't think any of these people really even care about these shows or movies
No.
in general, because if they did, they wouldn't hate on it so much. So
You're missing the whole point of what we're experiencing, what we're enjoying. It bothers me to this day because my mother was a huge Trekkie, and
yeah,
she would always be like, "Well, it's the better franchise." And, Mom, it's not the better franchise. You just love that one, but they don't
yeah.
have fans that do this. It's just.
They in this day and age, we're starting to see it coming
Are
around.
you
There's some,
serious?
yep,
Oh yeah, the new
there's some
shows.
toxic Trek fans now.
What's
So
oh God.
yeah,
Anyway, I'm glad that you and Harrison are doing this. Let me move away from that
yeah,
bullshit. I'm
yeah,
glad that you guys are doing this because I'm very much a fan of Star Wars. I always have been since I was a kid,
yeah.
and the new shows and the new movies, all of these things. I cannot wait to hear you guys break them down and talk about what you love about them. Really.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, and it's going to continue to be a lot of fun, because I know, we we end up having these very long conversations at home, and we've been talking about it for a long time. We're like, we really need to take these conversations and put them into a podcast, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's just us just talking about Star Wars, which is fine. We have lots of fun talking about Star Wars, but if we're not, putting it out there for others to hear, then it's just our wives having to listen to us talk about it for 3 hours long. They're tired of it.
Yeah,
So
trust me, I know. I talk movies all the time with my kids, and I know my husband's just over us. We're just nerds to the core.
yeah,
And he loves movies too. Don't get me wrong. He is very much a Star Wars kid. There's no bigger love than
yeah.
my husband. Oh my God. But
He needs to listen to our show then too.
I'm gonna sell him on that right away because he'll love it. Trust me. I this man probably loves it more than I do.
That's funny. But
However,
yeah,
I can't get him to do a podcast with me. I keep trying, but he won't bite. Um, I don't know if I have the stamina to do another
yeah, yeah.
podcast.
Between yours and then coming on for mine every week.
Yeah, and I'm doing mine every week now, which is it's I
Yeah.
still love it, but it's just weird still for me because I used
And,
to do every other week for all
and
y'all
we're
who don't know.
we're still talking about doing another one together. So we'll see how that happens.
Yeah, that'll be good. I think
Yeah.
once a month.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So
But yeah, that's all I got. I mean,
that's
I'm
all I
very
got to this
excited
week.
to hear both of those podcasts with your kids. I'm super super excited.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I hope it'll be a lot of fun for people to listen to as well. So
It will.
yeah. Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll see. We're still gonna be doing it regardless if people listen to it or not. So we'll have one listen every week, and that'll be all it
Hey,
is.
I look at it this way, we're already out there in podcast world. If nothing else, it'll be a great little time capsule for your grandson to listen
Yeah,
to when he
exactly.
gets older.
Yeah, no. I made new music for each one of these podcasts, and he put a let him listen to them, and he'll come back every once in a while. He'll come back to my room and be like, "Grandpa, let me listen to the podcast." So he wants me to pop up the podcast music again for him. So he's already a fan. So,
Oh my goodness.
but yeah, no, that's all I got for today. We'll have some more next week. I know I am probably going to be going to the movies. I haven't gotten tickets yet, and I'm honestly not sure what's coming out. I know something's coming out that I have not checked on just yet. Hold on, let me see. Oh yeah, A Quiet Place Day One comes out this week,
Ooh.
so I will definitely be checking out that, and possibly Kinds of Kindness too, which is the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie. So
Yeah, I think I might actually end up going to see Kind of Kindness. My sons are, my oldest and my youngest are both wanting to go, so I think I may end up going to that.
yeah, yeah, it looks a lot looks a lot of like a lot of fun. I still need to see some of his other movies. The only one I've seen of his so far is his last one, which I
Poor
completely blanked
things.
in. Poor Things. Thank you. I could like pretty for some reason was the word that kept popping in my head, and I was like, I don't think that's the right thing.
If
So
I were you, I would watch them in order. If you can, watch them in order because you can see his progression and
yeah.
how he works, his mind works. Dogtooth to this day is probably still one of my favorite ones.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, and it's a nutty one. So if any of you haven't watched it, don't get mad at me if you get uncomfortable because it's very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But yeah, that's it. We can talk about that hopefully if I go, and if I don't, you can let me know how it is.
Yeah, definitely. All right. All right. And we did have one last thing that Donna wanted to talk about real quick.
Oh yeah, so unfortunately we lost Donald Sutherland this week, and
Yeah.
I'm still doing my Doom in June series, so I scrapped what I was actually going to talk about, and on my upcoming episode, I will be doing the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, just so that I can talk a little bit about him and the movies he's been in and all of his work.
That's awesome.
And that movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, is still relevant now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
would like to hope one day we can stop saying it's still relevant now. But, just because it was so fresh and he just passed, I wanted to talk about one of the best sci fi horror movies that I can ever think of that scares me still to this day.
Yeah. No, it definitely I've seen that one. It's really good. It was one of the whenever I was kind of reintroducing myself back into horror. Um, that was one of the early ones that I watched, and yeah, it's a really good movie. He's really fantastic in it. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
a yeah. It was definitely sad. I saw the post that his son Kiefer Sutherland had posted on there, and it was a very nice tribute to his dad.
It
So,
was really sweet. Yes, it was.
but
And
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh no, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and it just, when that happened, I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of that one because it really does fit the Doom and June
Yeah,
series of
yeah,
films that I'm talking about. But more importantly, just because I wanted to gush a little bit about some of the roles he's been in that I absolutely love. So that'll be coming up, or actually, it'll be up by the time this episode goes up.
yeah, yeah. So definitely go check out her latest episode, which just came out a couple of days ago, and go let her know what you think. But yeah, that's all we've got for this week. We'll see you next week, and until then, stay creepy. On today's What's Your Favorite Double Feature episode, Molly Henry returns to the show to talk about Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, and Talk to Me. Molly Henry is a film critic, entertainment writer, and author of both nonfiction and fiction. She writes horror film reviews for her own website, The Blogging Banshee, as well as other outlets, including Fangoria, Dread Central, Nightmarish Conjurings, and more. She is most well known for her uterus horror column on Certified Forgotten, which examines a different film each month in a subgenre of horror Molly named and defined. She also co authored the upcoming book, Queer Horror, a film guide. Welcome back to the show, Molly.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, we had a great time last time talking Teen Wolf and Ginger Snaps.
Yes.
So I reached out to you and said, "Hey, do you want to do another episode on a favorite double feature?" You gave me a few suggestions, and this was the one I like the best, mostly because I hadn't yet talked to anybody about Talk to Me, and I really
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to talk about that movie. So
Yeah.
uh, it was an interesting pairing. I can see why you paired them, sort of. But yeah, definitely interested in kind of figuring out the connection there.
Yeah.
So.
Trust me, there is a method to the madness with this.
No, and I can kind of see it. I don't get me wrong, I can definitely see it. Let's go ahead and start with the marked ones, which was kind of like an offshoot of the overall Paranormal Activity storyline up until this point. They'd all been kind of following the family. It kind of started in the first one, and it kind of and this one kind of really took a big detour. This one was the first movie of the series that Christopher Landon directed. He'd written or co-written all of the other entries except for the first one. And so this was his first chance at actually directing one of them as well as writing it. So that it was an interesting departure. When rewatching it this time, I remember giving it a low rating the last time, but I know a lot of people have remarked about this being their favorite of the franchise because it is a departure and it goes into some different kind of weird areas. And I think honestly, I really think this movie would have been a lot better without the found footage aspect to it. I think that's where I came away from it more. That I liked it, but sometimes the found footage was a little too much. There was a lot of times where I'm like, they would have really dropped the camera at this point instead of taking it with them everywhere. So
Yeah, that's definitely true.
but no, I did like it. It's definitely an interesting departure from the storyline, but then kind of dovetails right back into it. So so why did you why do you connect these two together?
Well, a lot of it is because when like talking about the marked ones first,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily my favorite of the Paranormal Activity franchise, but I think it is vastly underrated. I do agree that the found footage aspect doesn't necessarily work as well with this one
Right.
because in the others, it's mostly like home security cam
Yeah, they're
setup
more
kind of
static
thing.
cameras. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this one, obviously, it's relying on these characters to carry it around, which works for, I'd say maybe like 50, maybe even 75% of the film, but
Right.
especially when you get at the climax, it's like there's no
Yeah.
way
Yeah. Like yeah, no,
that
that
this
was
would,
the yeah, sorry.
yeah.
That was the way that was what everyone was like. I was like, no, 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 no. Why are you still carrying that? Why are you even bringing it with you at this point?
Yeah,
So
and especially because like there's like the gang member involved and stuff. There's
mhm.
no way in hell that gang member would have allowed you to film him
Right.
doing this kind of
Breaking
shit.
and
There's
entering and stuff.
absolutely no
Yeah.
way. But I think the thing that I love about this one, and it's also part of why I connect it with Talk to Me, is because it starts out so fun. Like this one is like sorry, cannot talk. This installment of Paranormal Activity is the only one that I would use the word fun to describe. Like, because you're hanging out with these young kids and they're
Yeah.
goofing off and you get that like kind of like party atmosphere that you also get in Talk to Me
Yeah.
before you get into more of the like straight horror part of it, which I absolutely love. And with both of them, I think that there's this kind of sense of when you're a teenager, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like they're messing with these paranormal things that they have no real understanding of. Like
Yeah.
we as viewers, as adults, we know that it's really stupid and dangerous what they're doing, and they should either be running away from whatever they're doing or they should be seeking an adult to try to figure
Right.
out and help them. But because it's like this cool fun new thing, they just kind of bring it into that like party atmosphere and that fun for them until it gets to the point of no return, and then it's
Yeah.
like there's no way you're coming back from this. You've already gone too deep into this supernatural stuff, and it kind of seals their fate. And that's
Yeah.
something that I think both of these films capture really well. And with Paranormal Activity, like I said, I love that atmosphere. I also love that even though it is its own entry, and it's aside from obviously like the next of kin movie, which is like its own thing also, with this one it is its own thing and you are introduced to these new characters, but at the same time they do a great job, I feel like, of connecting it to the rest of the franchise.
Yeah.
Like there are small things that connect it, and then obviously the climax takes place at the house
Yeah.
from the third film. And what I love about that is that it brings a different perspective, but it also really just builds and expands on the lore that you've
Yeah.
learned in the previous films, which I thought was really clever. Um, there's one part of the climax, like the very final moment, that I was like, okay, you guys took it a little too far here. Which I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say it. But I just think it's so entertaining and fun. And I think a lot of people didn't like the movie when it first came out just because they wanted it to be a straight continuation of the story with I'm not even going to remember their names. I remember Chrissy, but I don't remember the other sister's name. But they wanted the Katie, thank you. They wanted the continuation of that family story. Which it's, I mean, anytime a horror film does that, we've seen that with like almost any franchise when they do a departure from what people expect, people are mad. But then a few years down the road, people who watch it and they're like, wow, this is great. And I feel like that's kind of happening with this movie.
Yeah, I think I think that's probably why I gave it a low rating, because I was rewatching the series and I hadn't yet watched the Mark ones ever. And so when I was rewatching the series, you know, you get to number 4 and then you're like, okay, well, this is, you know, still relating all back to the family and everything. And then all of a sudden it just takes this weird, like wild departure outside of all of that. And I think that's part of the like, I love the final, or the not final, I love the Paranormal Activity franchise, but they dole out little bits of the mythology every one rather than deep diving into it. And that's what's always kind of frustrated me, is like, I want like one movie where they just kind of explain everything and just kind of like, I don't know, not resolve it all, but at least just kind of go, okay, here's everything you need to know, and this is what's going on. And, you know, just kind of, I don't know, somebody needs to, I'm sure somebody has already, but somebody just needs to kind of smash cut all the end parts where it's all about the family storyline and the, you know, how the mother, this whole witch coven and everything has been going on. So it's just like, I don't know. I love the series, but it's sometimes so frustrating. So
and I would imagine that is a large part because they didn't plan a big mythology. Like they thought that it was going to be one film. Obviously the ending that we got is different than what was originally supposed to be the ending. And because they wanted, like the studio wanted to leave the option for sequels if it did well. And so I think that even though I agree it is frustrating, because I am someone who really loves like the deep dives and the mythos that horror films creates. But I kind of appreciate that they found this way where in each film, by going deeper and deeper and adding to the mythos, they're able to still continue the same story, but also give you a little something new at the same time, which I appreciate. And it doesn't always work, because I would say I like on average 50% of the movies. There are, and I'm not counting Next of Kin. I know a lot of people hate Next of Kin.
I didn't mind Next of Kin.
I like it if you don't look at it as a Paranormal Activity movie. You know what I mean? Like,
well, because it's not as connected, and so it makes sense.
If you just literally call it Next of Kin, I'm fine with that. But there are 2 specific films in the franchise that I am not as big of a fan of. But overall, they all do add really interesting things to the mythos. But I do also appreciate in this one that we're getting a different cultural aspect as well.
Because,
definitely. Like, I mean, horror is a lot of white people doing stupid shit.
That's a lot of white people doing stupid shit,
It's a lot of that. So, I mean, granted, the people in this movie are doing stupid shit too, but it's nice that you get like kind of that like downtown LA Hispanic cultural aspect as well.
Well, it's the first one to, well, I wouldn't say it's the first one, but it really takes it out of doors. Whereas, like we said before, where it was mostly security cameras and static cameras and stuff, we've got more movement. Everything's moving. It's more outdoors. So in that aspect, it's very interesting compared to the first 4. And like you said, bringing in a different cultural perspective on it really gives it a lot of energy that by this point they've been kind of going downward on. So so it definitely helps out a lot for sure.
And then when you also look at that compared to Talk to Me, obviously Talk to Me was a huge hit. Like people love this movie, and I'm one of those people. I love this movie. I rewatched it yesterday to prep, and I was like, wow, I forgot how unhinged this movie gets. But it kind of starts the same way, where it's
Yeah.
like it's these kids having so much fun, like that whole montage of them playing with the hand,
Yeah.
and like it's just one big party and it's so fun. And even as the viewer, you know that things are going to go so bad.
Yeah.
But you can't help but be caught up in the party and the fun and the excitement of it all. And it's like, oh yeah, I would never do that, but yeah, it's fun to watch you do it.
Right.
But then when it does make that turn, I think one of the big differences between these two, even though thematically there are a lot of similarities, is that with the marked ones, it's a much more gradual change. I feel like there are like little hints along the way of the danger, and they're ignoring this. Whereas in Talk to Me, it seems all fun and games, and then the second it's not, it's just like such an abrupt, violent shift.
Right.
And I'm not using violence metaphorically. It's very violent when that shift happens. And then it's just like them trying to scramble and figure out how to fix it. And even though at that point,
it's
like
too late.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle kind of thing. But even like with, again, that's also like it presents a different cultural aspect as well, because it is, I mean, it's Australian, but like Australian horror, I feel like is very beloved in the horror community, like more so like exploitation films, like Wolf Creek and stuff. But so it was cool to see this film that is this really fun, very graphic Australian horror film, but have it go more in the direction of supernatural rather than human killers, which I thought was really cool too. But even when you look at the main characters, they are like they're kind of like outcast a little bit. Like they maybe have like just a couple of friends. Both of them lost their moms. Both of them are so drawn in to this supernatural stuff, whether it be because of that loss or just because like it makes them feel special when they haven't felt that way ever. So they are the ones that get so sucked into it, even when people are telling them, maybe you should reel it in a little bit. They just go so hard into it. So I feel like there are a lot of similarities even between those two main characters. But and even both of them don't have the best fates either, which is also but I love that these movies are so entertaining and exciting and fun while also being absolutely horrifying at the same time. Different types of horrifying, but both of them have moments that, like, if I watch them alone in the dark, I will probably turn all the lights on in my house.
No, I agree. I think that, it's that's what makes them both fun, and because of the similarity, and definitely when watching them both, like I definitely saw how uniquely alike they were, in terms of the protagonist, the main protagonist, and this and the individual circumstances that they're both dealing with, their group of friends, and everything was just very, very similar to each other in so many ways, and it's but yeah, no, I mean they both have their own unique identities as well. And I do like that, like you said, with this with Talk to Me being an Australian production, it's definitely not one of those ones that leans into, oh well, we're so heavily Australian, we got to be, because this could easily have been kids in America doing this, or kids in England doing this, anywhere, because it was the suburbs of of whatever.
It's not like they were in the middle
Australia.
of Outback or anything like that.
No, exactly. And so they didn't lean into that, which was great, because it made it more relatable for everybody. And I think it's the same thing with the marked ones as well. It makes it more relatable that you have these kids who are, because you can remember how you were as a kid. You were stupid, and you would have probably fallen into something like this if you were dealing with similar things. So it's definitely they're both a lot of fun, especially when watching them together like that. But yeah, it's the marked ones, I think it definitely went up a little bit for me. as much as I like the Paranormal Activity movies, I was just looking at my letterbox grades on each of the on all of them, and they're all pretty just middle of the road. I don't think that there's any one that I love. I think I like the series as a whole, because of what it does once you find out more about the mythology behind it all. But it's one of those series that's just it's okay. It's a good series. It's reliable at least. Um,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't mind seeing more. But I would like for them to get more kind of I guess, whereas Marked Ones was a good departure, and Next of Kin was okay, that I think it's better when they kind of stick to the formula a little
Yeah.
bit. And so
Well, and what's interesting too with the marked ones is that I do appreciate that, like in the scene when they meet with the stepdaughter from the second film,
yes,
I like that she's kind of there to act as this person that gives them a lot of context, a lot of the backstory that we had
right.
never heard before. And I almost wish that if they did another film, I don't think it's something that if they did this that they would be able to do in a found footage style, but I would like to kind of go to the origin of this like cult of witches, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And learn more about that, like go back to the origin of it all, rather than kind of getting just like little nuggets of information through what's
Yeah.
happening to this mostly the same family. Because like I said, even in Marked Ones, they still relate it back to that family
Right. Yeah.
constantly throughout the film.
I would
So it
like
would
to
be
see them
really
branch out
interesting to
to
see
other
that.
families or something like that. Yeah. But I would
Yeah,
like to get,
especially because
yeah.
they talk about like in this one, it's cool too because they talk more about how like it's like the firstborn son thing,
Yeah.
and so we see it happen obviously at different stages and to different degrees. But in that film, we basically see it happen to two teenage boys,
Yeah.
and it's interesting to see like, wow, this is something that probably affects way more people than we thought it did
Yeah.
at first. So it would
Yeah.
be really interesting, like
It's a
maybe
whole
even to go to a
cult.
totally
Yeah.
different country too, because it seems
Yeah.
like I think when they went to the first boy's house, when there were all the news clippings, I think that there was even stuff from newspapers from other countries on there too, if I remember correctly. So like obviously it's like this worldwide thing that's going
Right.
on that, and even though it's like specific to these witches, it's obviously something that has spanned across multiple different cultures. So I
Right.
feel like there's so much room to expand it and do all these different perspectives and do like a more thorough deep dive into
Right.
this cult so we have a better
Well,
understanding.
yeah, and I think that's what Christopher Landon was probably trying to allude to,
Yeah.
was probably he was trying to explore the mythology in a much broader way. And then because Marked Ones didn't do that great, then they were
Yeah.
just like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. And I think that's kind of what Next of Kin kind of tries to do too, is like, let's expand it out. Let's put it in a different area, let's put it in the world of these people, rather than having it fully connected back to, Katie and all of them originally.
Well,
So
and with Next of Kin, I only saw it once when it first came out, so I'm not
same.
remembering, but was that one even connected even remotely to the other
I
films? Because
to be
I
fair,
took
I
it
only
as
saw it
like,
once right when it came out too.
yeah, it's one of those things that like I'm probably due for a rewatch because like I said, I didn't hate it.
Same. Yeah.
There were a lot of things that I actually liked about it, but I don't remember it having any kind of connection to the other films.
Right.
So I kind of took it as them doing like a reboot kind of thing
Yeah.
with that.
And that's what
So
I kind of assumed they were going to do with it too, and I'm
yeah.
pretty sure, aren't we, didn't they announce that there's more Paranormal Activity movies
Oh,
coming?
did they? I don't know.
I
I feel like
I
Blumhouse
could be
is
I
announcing
could be
so
wrong.
many remakes and reboots
Right.
lately, like and sequels. It's so hard to keep up.
Yeah, yeah. We just got the announcement that Flanagan was going to be doing the new Exorcist movie.
Yeah.
So,
And I
which
didn't
is
they just
great.
announce that they're doing a reboot of My Bloody Valentine also?
Did they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that just came out like this week or last
Oh
week.
wow. Okay.
Yes. So there's
I mean,
lots of stuff going on. They're really banking on those reboots right
can we
now.
just get a follow up to the 2009 My Bloody Valentine? Because I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
So I
I
like that one.
love that movie.
Me too. I like that. I'm going to be controversial. I like that one more than the original. So
I do
uh,
too, but to be fair, I saw that one before I saw the
me
original. So
too.
I think
Me
that
too.
plays a part in it.
Oh yeah, for
And I
sure.
also like have a very memorable movie going experience for that movie too. So
Okay.
it has a special place in my heart also. So it's like I'm probably biased in that sense for that
Yeah.
movie.
No, for sure. I'm the same way. I didn't get to see it in 3D. I would have loved to have seen it in 3D,
Mm-hmm.
but it is such a fun movie that we're getting wildly off topic, of course. But
That's what
I
happens when you
just
talk about horror movies. It always ends up somewhere
yeah,
else.
especially on my show, we're always talking about the most random stuff. But it's just, I don't know, it takes that central concept and just elevates it in such an interesting, fun way. And it's not to say the original isn't a good movie on its own, because it is. I've gained more
Yeah.
appreciation for it the more times I've watched the original, but there's just something about that remake that just hits so much better. So I'd love to see a sequel to that. So
Yeah.
I'm
And it
sure
makes me
Jensen
wonder
Ackles will
too,
be
like
up
if
for
they're
it.
doing a reboot, is it gonna be like a retread of the same story that we've basically seen
Yeah,
twice? They obviously tweaked it up a bit for the
the
remake.
remake. Yeah.
But it'd be nice if they went in a different direction for it.
Yeah, I think that would be the more fun thing. And that's always what I have an issue with too, is like if you're gonna just remake something, then that's not gonna be as much fun. Like let's come up with something a little bit off kilter just to make it just that little bit more fun.
Yeah. Like I
So,
always say, like for me, when you're looking at remakes, the one of the best examples for me is the Evil Dead remake,
oh yeah,
because it does so many like nostalgia nods to the
yeah.
original, but it is such a very different film.
Oh,
So it's not like you
absolutely.
can really even compare the two,
Yeah.
it's they're so different. Um, but I feel like that's the better route to go than like a shot for shot remake kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, you're definitely talking to one of the Evil Dead mega fans here. So I definitely love that movie. So
It's
it's
so
a, it's
good.
a it's a great update to the, and it fits well within the timeline as well. So it ends up
Mhm.
becoming not a remake, but just another step along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
So which is really good. So, but yeah, no, but getting back to marked ones, I think that overall it's a good movie. I think it does some interesting, fun things, like we said, with bringing in another culture and another way to look at kind of the things that we have had before. Because this is more, and this is what's interesting about it too. And maybe I'm wrong, but the other ones were more about, I mean, there was some possession going on in the earlier movies, but this one really had the possession going on
Yeah.
early on, more so than the other ones did. um and
Yeah, and I feel like it's the possession was almost kind of a different nature and purpose
yeah,
as well. So it felt a bit more fresh in that
yeah,
way. And honestly scarier because it seems like
yeah,
in the other ones, like obviously Katie is possessed more for a means to an end than anything
yeah,
else, rather than that being the ultimate goal. Whereas obviously in the marked ones, that was the goal, was that this demonic entity was going to take over his body.
right.
And it's like some of the details in that of like the process of the possession are horrifying. Like
Hmm.
when he pulls like the threads
Oh
out of his
man,
eye, ugh,
yeah,
like I hate
yeah.
that part so
Talking
much.
about Evil Dead 2013,
Yeah.
like that whole point with that. Oh yeah, that mirrored that so well.
Yeah, it's
So
like so like I loved, and I like, because obviously also in the first Paranormal Activity, it's a lot more of an abrupt kind of possession, whereas
yeah,
this one, it's kind of a gradual wear down. Like
gradual.
they think that it's like, he even asks it at one point if it's his guardian angel. Like so
Yeah,
it's protecting him, but it's protecting him because it's like, that's my body. You're just
yeah,
borrowing it. It's gonna
right.
be mine soon.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, even in that's another connection to Talk to Me, is there is
Hmm.
possession in that as well, obviously of a very different nature, but
Yeah,
it's kind of similar concepts.
right.
It's
Yeah, and that
all
was the
involved.
other thing that I noticed with that, was just that both these are very much possession movies, where they
Mhm.
take on the spirits take on the control of the body, or in Talk to Me, like, because they do it in, like, with Riley and Talk to Me,
Mhm.
where it's a full on actual possession, whereas more of the other with Mia, it's more of a haunting kind of thing. It's just
Yeah.
more mental. So they don't really take over her body; they're just taking over her reality, I guess, in a way, messing
Yeah.
with reality.
And it's
Um,
interesting too, because with both films, I feel like there's a lot of deception involved as
mhm,
well.
yeah,
So, because obviously, like I just mentioned there's this perception that this entity is protecting him.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not the case at all. I mean, again, protecting his body, but that's about it. But it kind of speaks to the naivety of these young kids. Like they don't see the signs that not only what they're doing is dangerous, but also that whatever this is tricking them to get what they want. And that's the same in Talk to Me. Like, obviously when they're holding the hand, there's a kind of possession that happens, but it's one that they think they're in control of.
Yeah.
But obviously that is just yet another trick. And it's when Mia starts to see these things after the fact, because they didn't close out the ceremony properly, you stupid little kids. There's a lot of deception going on. Like, they do all these things to trick her and to get what they want out of her. Even though there are all these other things that are like warning signs for her that no, they're lying to you. This isn't what you should do. This isn't the right thing. And it takes her until the very last moment to finally realize that she's screwing up.
And by that point, it's way too late.
Yeah. And it makes both of them, like, even though they start out so fun and then go into horror, they both are so tragic at the same time.
They are, yeah.
Like, it's so heartbreaking because it's not just how it affects the main character, but like the impact that it has on their friends and family too. It's kind of like those like the ripple effect that this one person may be the target, but that doesn't change the fact that all these other lives are going to be impacted. And in a lot of cases ended.
There's a huge amount of collateral damage in both of these movies around the central character. So it's not just their dumb mistake that affects them only, and there's multiple people who die because of what they do. So
I also thought it was interesting when I rewatched it this time, because I noticed that even kind of the possession makeup is similar between these two films. Like, because they both go for more subtle, but there's like the really dark, almost black eyes that like the iris or pupil or whatever looks a little too big, and like the kind of redness around the eyes and the mouth, and even a little bit of veining. Like, it's so similar. Like the looks between those two, it almost makes me wonder when they were making Talk to Me if they drew inspiration from the marked ones, or if it was just a coincidence, because it's weird. Like, if you look at the two, like the kids when they're possessed side by side in the two films, like it's weird how similar the makeup is between them. And it's different than a lot of possession stuff. I feel like a lot of other possession movies either go like the Exorcist route or they just look normal. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. I think I like that. And who knows if they took inspiration from it or not. But it definitely would be interesting to find out, especially when having connected these like you have, to go back and find out, did you intend for this? It'd be a nice little fun thing to find out, especially if they did. But let's talk about the ending of the marked ones real quick, because it definitely, that's where it connects to the overall Katie Featherstone stuff that had already come before, because they go to the house of, is it her mother or her grandmother? I can never remember.
It was her grandmother.
So, and again, this is interesting because we've got these, I love these movies where it's like this and Hereditary, where it's these older women who are like in these like covens and stuff that are like trying to bring these demonic entities into their into their kids and their grandkids' lives and stuff, and it's just like, it's wild. I love that. Hereditary is one of my favorite movies. It's kind of a nice
like reverse of the maternal instinct, because you always expect mothers to do whatever they can to protect their child, but in those movies that is not at all the case.
No,
in fact, it's the opposite. They probably only had those kids for the purposes of what they're doing with the covens.
Which is wild. It's but so they go to storm the house to go find Jesse, because he's been taken, and they find him, but then all the coven, the women that are there, and it's a great sequence too, because like these women are full bore running at them with these knives, and then the gang member, the gang leader, he just full on shoots them and they go flying.
I know. I
It's a
love that.
great action sequence.
It's a great action sequence. One that, again, that's where the whole like holding onto the camera thing doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily make sense, but
yeah,
it still is really cool
yeah,
and exciting and horrifying.
yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I feel like if they dropped the camera and kind of done it from that bottom up angle, maybe that
Oh
would have been
yeah.
an interesting, like, because then they could have like scrambled over and go, oh, I gotta grab the camera again, whatever. But at least for a moment, maybe have it drop and have that angle be, a little bit more, would have been a little bit more realistic.
Yeah. Or even like have them drop it and then have one of the coven members pick it up, because we know that they kept all the videos like of the stuff at
Yeah,
Katie and Christy's house and stuff. Like we know that they keep a lot of the documentation.
yeah.
So I feel like they could have been like, well, now I'm going to film you and mess with you.
Right. Yeah, no. But then like they're running through the house, and it's the house that we were familiar with, the grandmother's house that we were familiar with from the earlier movie. But then he goes through one door, and then suddenly it's Katie and I guess Mika's
Mika, yeah.
house. Katie and Mika's house from the first movie. And
Mhm.
it was like, wait, what? Like, how did this like transfer? And it's like, is the door a portal, or is this just the house exist within the other house? It's very weird. And I think this is the point you were talking about where it kind of takes you out.
Well, that part made sense to me because it's so brief, but they earlier in the film they do reference, I can't remember if it's when they were having the meeting with the stepdaughter or not.
Mm.
But there are doorways that have markings around them that are
Oh,
ways for
okay.
them
I missed
to
that.
travel, like I can't remember if it's specifically through like time and space or something, but it essentially
Oh,
is
okay.
like the markings around the door do create some kind of portal. But it's like it's so subtle that like if you're not really paying attention,
Yeah.
it's easy to miss. Um, but like it just there were so many good connections to the previous films that I feel like that was like a weird unnecessary
It was
piece.
almost too much. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of made I mean, I guess it made sense with the ending of the first film. Like I could see that be like, because then like that explains why she was screaming and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just, when that happened, instead of it being like this, oh, wow, like aha moment, it was just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
really?
It's like
That's
you
what you
guys went a
decided
little
to do?
too far. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like going to the grandma's house and having that still be a large part of the coven and stuff, and that being the final battle place was already really cool. And I don't think that that little added bit at the end was necessary. And I
Right.
feel I feel like even though again they did mention the portals earlier in the doorways, I feel like it made it a lot less realistic. And I know it's
Yeah.
like it's a supernatural demonic thing, like whatever. So it's not really a realistic story at all. But because it's found footage, it does kind of have this realism factor, and I feel like that
Yeah.
made it far less realistic.
Right.
And it definitely took me out of it a bit, which especially when it's the climax of the film, you don't want the audience to be taken out of that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
And
And
I don't believe that the camera would have still been working after he went through there. Some kind of supernatural interference would have happened and broken that thing.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, no, I think I agree with that because it didn't fully take me out, but it was just like, wait, why? Like,
Yeah.
it just was too. It was like you said, it was a little too much for the audience to like continue to go along with. We'd already had the Coven. There was no reason to insert them into Paranormal Activity number one. Um,
Yeah. Especially because you didn't just have the coven, you also had like the like spectral little girls
yeah,
in like the basement and
yeah,
stuff too. So like there were already so many, and you had the stepdaughter that was there. Like there was
yeah.
no need to continue. They basically tried to connect it to every single previous
Previous
entry,
entry, yeah.
which was so unnecessary.
Right.
You guys had enough connections. You didn't need to keep going.
This is very true. Very true. But yeah, let's talk more about Talk to Me because that's I think it was an interesting movie too because I didn't see it. I think I maybe saw it during the second week that it was out because everybody had been talking about it, and I always have this fear that when people are talking so heavily about a certain movie that
if I'm not, and I was just kind of soft on it. It looked interesting, but not enough that I was really going to go out and watch it.
Yeah.
And then everybody started talking about it and saying, "Oh my God, this movie's so good." I'm like, oh, crap. Is it going to be good or is it going to be crap? Because longtime listeners know I'm not a fan of Malignant, and everybody loves Malignant. And like, and it's okay. It's an okay movie. It's just it wasn't something that wowed me like it wowed everybody else. And so I was just like, that's the kind of thing where I'm always a little hesitant when a movie comes out and everybody seems to love it. I'm like, oh man, am I gonna really like this one or is it gonna suck?
Yeah.
But
It's
I had the
tough when
same
that happens.
I had the same issue with Barbarian at first too, but I loved Barbarian and I ended up loving Talk to Me. This was a movie that when we got to the theater, we ended up watching it at the crappy theater that's a little bit that's closer to us, and and it was my daughter and I, and we always go to the movies together. And during the movie, there's some of those moments we were just like sitting back, we're like, oh, like just it's a rough movie at times. It's very brutal, and shockingly brutal at times, and it comes out of nowhere. And there's sometimes where there's little moments, little things in the background that you're just like, oh my God, did you see that? So
Yeah.
so it was a lot of fun in the theater, and it was still pretty crowded. I must have been the first week or two when we went, because it was a very crowded theater still. So, but it was thankfully a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. So,
yeah, that was one that I actually was able to go to an advanced screening for.
Okay.
And even at that point, it already had so much buzz.
Right.
Like there was unless you saw it, because I think it maybe premiered at a film festival. I can't remember for sure, but like maybe Fantastic Fest or something like that. So unless you literally saw it the first time it was on the screen, there was no way you could escape all the buzz around it. And it's really hard because I always do my best to go in with no expectations for a film, especially like, honestly, if anything, if it's one where it's the kind of movie where people say it's the scariest film ever made, which this is one of the ones that had that.
Yep.
Or they're like, oh, people were fainting in the theater.
Right.
I automatically assume that it's not going to be that. Right. Because most of the time that is
9 times out of 10, it's actually the most like tame movie ever. And you're like, what are people seeing in this movie that I am not?
As someone who has been to a lot of festivals, I can say if there's someone throwing up or passing out, I guarantee you there's someone who doesn't normally watch horror.
Yeah, that's true.
Because when I used to live in Phoenix and I went to International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, which shows with the Phoenix Film Festival. So it's not all horror stuff.
Right.
And there were so many times where I would go to one of the screenings there and there are just like these old, I forget, snowbirds, like the snowbirds that are down there. They will just get tickets to whatever without looking at it. And I can't tell you how many horror films I went to at that festival where within the first 10 minutes, a bunch of old people walked out of the theater. So I always assume it's people like that are having these reactions.
Right.
But with Talk to Me, I feel like I'm kind of 50-50 on it being deserving of a lot of that buzz, because I do think when we get to that point with Riley, that when the shit really starts going down, like it is so abrupt and shocking and violent and graphic and gory that I was absolutely shocked when I saw that. But at the same time, I kind of wanted more of that. Specifically when we get a glimpse of what's happening to Riley when he's in the hospital, the stuff that obviously is happening like on another plane or whatever. You see that so briefly, but it's obviously something that they put a lot of time into the practical effects and the makeup and stuff and the lighting, but we see it for half a second and it's like, no, show me more of that. If you're gonna do that, go all out, go balls to the wall with it.
And I think that may have been an issue with the budget more than anything else. They were like, well, let's do this one little piece right here. And, we are getting Talk to Me too. So
Mhm.
hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that in the next one. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's definitely some moments in that movie where you're just like, I want to see more of
Yeah.
this. Like, like it does, there's I wouldn't say, it takes too long to get to the point, because it starts off brutal,
Yeah.
with that sequence, with the other guy in the very beginning. That is just very brutal. But it's just one of those things where I think that, and then it kind of, I don't know, doesn't, it's not slow, but it definitely takes its time. It does it in a good way for sure. But you're just like, once it hits, you kind of want it to just barrel through, keep going. But then
Yeah.
it gets back to some of the slow moments and everything. And it's just like, okay, come on, let's do more. So I get
Yeah, it
that.
is
Yeah.
like, because I don't even mind because I love that the cold open kind of sets the tone for
Hmm.
what we can expect. But then when they actually do get into the horror, it's even bigger than we
Yeah.
expect. But I do agree that once you get into that, you have this like adrenaline rush, but then
Yeah.
it kind of
You
ebbs
kind
and
of
flows a
drops
little
back
bit
out.
more.
Yeah. I think they're
Um,
going more for in that instance, they're probably going more for they're going to keep trying to shock you with sudden
yeah,
shocks rather than a sustained bit right there, which I mean,
yeah,
it works. It's not bad. Um,
yeah.
but
I
yeah, I
think
think it'd be a lot
one
of
of
fun to do it like continuously too.
Yeah, but I also think one of the issues with that aspect of it, because like I love um part of me loves that the mythos in this is more of a mystery. Like we don't really know the origin of the hand. We don't
Yeah.
know how this game, as they perceive it, it's obviously not a game, but that's
Right.
how these kids view it.
I almost feels like somebody definitely set it up. Like that's how it feels
Yeah,
to me, is like somebody started this to mess with people on purpose,
yeah. And so
So
like it kind of like part of me likes that it's more of a mystery, but the problem for me with it us being totally in the dark about a lot of what's going on and just kind of having to learn along with the protagonist is that it makes some of the stuff around the ghosts a little bit confusing,
yeah,
especially because they
the
are,
motivations and
yeah,
such.
they
Yeah.
obviously are trying to trick her, but like, is their ultimate goal to possess someone? Do they just want these people to die so that they have those souls? Like it's a
Yeah.
little unclear, and I'm hoping that that's something that they're going to address in. I think it's a prequel that they're doing,
There's a
right?
prequel. Well, there's a prequel and a sequel coming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Although I think I heard, and this was really disappointing when I heard this, if this is the case, I think I heard that the prequel is actually just going to be about the kid from the cold opening,
Oh,
which
okay.
I was like,
Which is,
I want to
I
go to
don't
the
think we
origin
need
of the
that.
hand.
Yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, an
Yeah,
origin of the
like,
hand would be a lot
especially
better.
because it's like you know how it ends,
Yeah.
but also it's basically going to be the same story as what we saw
Yeah.
in this film. Like we
Yeah.
know that from the context that we learned from these other characters that
Yeah.
knew that kid.
Unless that prequel then folds in the origin of the hand as well, then yeah,
Yeah.
I think that they're it's a little too similar. But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess we'll have to find out once it comes out. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think the prequel is actually being done by the same filmmakers. I think they're
Oh, I
doing the
thought it
sequel.
was.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I
It's
heard,
so confusing because there's so,
yeah.
like I said, like kind of like with Blumhouse, there's so many sequels and prequels and
Right.
all these different things. It's hard to keep track of all the news that comes out.
Yeah. Um, I just, like, let's see. The sequel says, according to, um, I guess they're both being done. Oh, okay. So apparently the prequel, according to Letterboxd, has a prequel short film that tells the
Oh,
story of Duckett entirely through cell phones and social media. So it's more of a found footage style.
interesting. Which I guess
So,
makes sense since every time these kids do this, they're filming on their
well,
phones and
yeah,
stuff.
and he even points it out in the very beginning too. He's like, as he's trying to take his brother out of there, they're like,
Yeah.
"Really, you're recording this?" And so yeah, I can see where that could be an interesting way to do it. So I'm
Yeah.
okay with that, especially since it's a short film. So that maybe it'll be a short film in front of the sequel.
Yeah, I
Who
could see
knows?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where like I really hope that in subsequent iterations they do dive a lot more into that mythos, because
Yeah.
that was one of the great things about the marked ones, is that we had this really clear mythos. Like we knew a little bit of it already, but in the context of that film, because it was different than what we had seen in the other ones, you're really learning along with the kids who are trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And you didn't really get that in Talk to Me. That was the one thing that I think is the biggest difference between the two films, is that they're not learning about the hand or like
Right.
where this comes from or what these spirits want or anything like that. It's more
Right.
just like, we screwed up. This is really bad. We need to
Yeah,
find a way to
we need
fix
to
it.
fix it. Yeah, which I mean makes sense. Like
Yeah.
for this movie, and again, I think that by the time we got to marked ones, we'd already had four other movies that had kind
Yeah.
of explored the mythos, and so it had a little bit more breathing room to kind of dive into it a little bit more. Whereas this is the first movie in the Talk to Me franchise. Hopefully they'll hopefully with the sequel they'll dive a little bit more into the history of it and everything, and so if they don't, it'll be weird if they don't dive into it, because I think that's definitely a good point. What's the history of the hand? What do these ghosts want? Or what do these spirits want? Are they, because because they don't seem to be the real people. Like that was definitely not her mom. Like
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
so
Kind
there's
of like how they
something.
showed that they were mimicking her dad,
Yeah.
which like, they're mimicking your dad. How do you not realize that that might not be your mom?
Right. Yeah.
If they can
And
do that, they can pretend to be your mom.
right. And that's what's interesting, is if they can get into that history and that mythos, that will make the overall storyline with this one a lot better. And I really hope that that's what they're going to do, is kind of delve into that a little bit more, rather than just give us another episode of kind of kids fucking shit up again.
Yeah.
So
Which like I love that about this movie, and it's
yeah.
so entertaining, and it's like you get so caught up in the fun of it all, but I don't think that would be a smart way to go for subsequent iterations.
No, and I mean we've seen that in other franchises where they just kind of keep replaying the same thing over again. I'm thinking of like Friday the 13th.
I was thinking the exact same
thing. It's literally the same movie every time. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a little bit different each time, and you can actually see there's a story being built through all of these, but they keep going back to some group of kids, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so, if we get more of a continuation, I would honestly like to see Riley and his sister kind of pick up, and the other two guys like pick up that thread now, because obviously by the end of this movie we understand Mia's dead, she's gone, now she's a spirit in the spirit realm, and I love that ending. Like she comes up and just grabs the hat. It's so fun
watching it because this time when I watched it was only the second time. The only other time I'd watched it was when I saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
And something that I noticed this time that I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Okay.
Because earlier, like when these kids are first introduced to the hand, the guy who has it in his backpack is like telling the story that he heard about how it's like the hand of a medium that was embalmed or whatever.
Right.
And they mentioned like, oh, and nobody knows where the other hand is. So when at the end, when Mia is a ghost and takes that hand of those people that's clearly in another country, I can't remember what language they're speaking.
It was Greek.
Is that the other hand or is that the same hand? Because the hand was at Mia's house, so how would it have got there?
Yeah, that was confusing. Or is it a different medium's hand completely? Like, are there multiple of these out there because somebody is playing a game with these kids, these people, So, I mean, ultimately, that's where it comes down to. And again, that opens up that mythos to a much broader thing. How many hands are out there? How many people are doing this? What is the ultimate end goal? Because it's interesting, too, because Mia herself is not a malevolent spirit, but yet she is there grabbing that hand to then talk to them. And so, and to possibly possess them, which will be interesting to bring her back in context as well, because we could then have her from the other side, because now she's in there. Now we can get that other side version maybe we would, like you said, we only got a bit part of that where Riley's being taken over by all those spirits, that maybe she can be the conduit to understanding what's going on, what these
Yeah.
spirits want and everything. So I think that'd be a really good way to bring it kind of all full circle like we're talking about.
It also makes me wonder too, because again, I feel like this is one of those things that since we don't have like a firm grasp on the mythos, that it could be interpreted so many different ways.
Yeah.
When I was watching this, I honestly couldn't tell if it was actually multiple different spirits or if it was maybe just one who was donning different. Yeah, because like even when they go talk to the older brother of the kid from the cold opening, he says, and they tell him like, well, Riley's messed up. We need to help him. And he's like, well, just give it a few days. They get weaker the longer they're in your body. So it'll probably get better. And he does end up getting better for that reason.
Yeah.
And so it like when they have that scene where you see him with all those spirits being tortured, I don't think that's actually happening. I feel like the little girl spirit, whether it actually was the little girl who turned evil from being there, or if it was the spirit pretending to be a little girl to kind of get her to
mess
trust
with her.
it.
Yeah.
I feel like they were doing that just to mess with her and trick her to get what they want. So I do think it does really make me wonder if there actually are. But then we see Mia take the hand. See, that's why like it's so up in the air, because I feel like either it's one entity donning multiple faces kind of thing, or it's once you are connected to the hand as a spirit, you eventually turn evil kind of thing. Or maybe just the evil ones are the more powerful ones. And that's why they're able to do that kind of stuff. Because it seems even when the kids are doing the party games, like not all of the spirits are bad. Like some of them are like just like quirky kooky, you know? So I feel like there's so many different possible interpretations that I like. That's what I really want from a sequel is I want to understand the first film better through the second film.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword too, because by giving us that information, they could go the completely wrong way and just kind of undercut all the power of that first movie by over explaining it in such a weird way, or they could just give us everything we want. And I don't know, they've got to do it in just the perfect way. I think it's kind of similar to, going back to Evil Dead, where they give you enough information about the books and the Kandarian demons and stuff like that, that it's just enough. And I think that that's what we need, is just enough. We don't need a ton. We just need a little bit. We need spirit motivations, how many hands there are, who started it all. I mean, I think that's all we need. We don't need a huge deep dive. We don't need to get all super complex into it and everything. Just make it fun and brutal, but definitely give us a little bit of backstory.
Yeah, because I feel like with the Paranormal Activity films, it is a very intricate, not necessarily convoluted, but there are like so many different threads and different things going on.
Well, and I think they drip out the material, drip out the storyline, and it's a little too little in each one of those. And I'd rather them give us a whole movie of just kind of going, okay, this is actually the full story,
And like, I feel like they don't need to do a ton with Talk to Me. Like really, like you said, I'm assuming that there are two hands out there. Like if they really are if it really is the embalmed hand of a medium,
right?
We have two hands. They probably took both of them and embalmed them. So like, I'm assuming there are two, but getting some kind of confirmation on that would be great. And then just like, if all these entities if it can be any ghosts can do that, or if it's only people who were somehow touched by the hand.
Yeah, that would be interesting too, is if it's only people who had touched the hand before.
Because obviously then it would have started with the medium. I would assume maybe even that old guy, maybe that was the medium.
And maybe maybe the medium is trying to like get out for whatever reasons and stuff, and it just hasn't been able to get its hooks into somebody long enough.
Yeah.
So
it's there. Like,
I think we're coming up with a better movie than maybe they will.
I feel like there are ways to do a really simple explanation without going too far with it. Like I'm also, like I said, like I just want to know how many hands. I want to know if there are only a few ghosts or if there are a lot, if any ghost can touch it. Because like we know that wasn't Mia's mom.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I have the feeling that probably all the ghosts that we see are people who play the game.
Yeah.
That's my assumption, but like having some kind of confirmation would be great.
Yeah. Like maybe if Duckett was in there, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
we'd seen Duckett.
And
in
who
there,
knows, because
so.
we don't see all the ghosts that they do too.
It's
So
true.
like it could he could have been one of them.
Because how long has that hand's been around? A long time, you know. So who knows how long it's actually been out there.
Yeah.
So
also just random, speaking of the hand, I got
I was
the
gonna say, did you buy
A24
one?
replica. I did, and I didn't realize when I bought it until it got here that it's a pipe. I could like put some leaf in it, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that when I bought it. So when I saw that, I was like, this is like the perfect marketing thing for that movie. It's so good.
No, they were very smart. A24 is one of those studios that it's just like, it's so funny too, because I just literally watched a YouTube video on the Vox channel on A24 and how they kind of built their brand and everything. And I've seen other stuff about it, but it's so funny to, because they built their brand out. A24 is the one weird studio that has a brand fully, and they do all this merch and everything else, including these limited things. I was going to ask you if you'd gotten one of the hands, because I know a lot of people. I don't know if you
can see it on here, but I also right there, that's the Midsummer
Oh, the bear in a cage.
Yes.
Oh, I'm jealous of that because
Yeah.
I love Midsummer. Midsummer is one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm actually going to go see it next month in IMAX, because I didn't get to see it in the theater when it originally ran, so this will be my chance to finally go see it in the theater.
Nice.
So.
That would be really cool to see in IMAX too.
Yeah. Oh man, the visuals in that alone are just stunning. So, but yeah, I'm jealous of the bear in a cage for sure.
Especially, this is like I'm digressing, but what I like about the bears too is that every single one is different, because they all have,
they were each handmade and stuff.
They all have flower wreaths around their necks that are made of real flowers, and so each one that you get has different flowers.
Interesting.
So like the one that I have will look different than another person's, which I thought was really clever and cool. The only thing that bugs me about it is that the bear in the cage isn't attached to the cage, so it
falls
moves
over
around in there. But that's okay.
Yeah,
it sits on a shelf anyways. It's fine. It's just when I move, it's not convenient.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely. I love that A24 does that. Like after Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, they put out the hot dog finger gloves and stuff. I'm like, it's the silliest things, but it's like,
and you can get
the
Rock with googly eyes too, can't you?
I think so. Well, you could have. I don't know if you could still get it, but
or like I know that I haven't seen this movie, but I know they also sold like Marcel the shell with shoes on. You can get a little version of that too.
That's funny. Yeah. I have not.
You know who I wish would do that too is Neon, because I feel like their horror movies, like they could do some really cool stuff. Like that's akin to what A24 is doing.
Yeah, I think Neon's kind of making their way up into that kind of A24 level. If they keep going the direction they're going, I think they can. I think they could get up there, be A24-esque. So that would be cool. But yeah, no. Yeah, Talk to Me. Talk to Me is a really good movie. I don't think I'd seen it since I'd seen it the first time in the theater. I think this was my only the second time I've watched it. And it was just as fun and interesting as the first time. It's definitely one of those movies I think people should see if you haven't, thankfully it's now, a year later, or a year or more later now. And so some of the hype on it has died down. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely, check it out, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And check out. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as a double feature, like obviously we've talked about thematically, they're very similar, but I also just feel like if you are with a group of friends, this is a great double feature, because you have that like fun. So like if you're drinking or partaking in other substances, like it's fun, which then makes the horror part of it even more fun and scary at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like they're both really good, like watching with your
Group
friends.
watches.
Yeah. And I feel like it's rare that you get movies like that. Like, because
Yeah.
obviously a lot of the ones from the 80s are very
Yeah.
much like that, but I feel like more modern movies, you don't get that like kind of just like fun and
Right.
scary kind of party movie.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of times when we think of like party-ish movies, you're thinking of movies that are kind of so bad, movies that you
Yeah.
get together as a group to kind of rip on them as you're watching them. Whereas as I think both of these movies, they're both good enough that I don't think you need to rip on them at all.
Mhm.
They would just be fun to watch as a group and just everybody just like, oh,
Yeah.
just especially for people like if you're in a group and people haven't seen the movies before. So it'd be great to watch reactions. Like I did that with my daughter. She somehow in the last 6 years she had never seen Hereditary. And
Ooh.
so we went to go see that at the theater when that came to IMAX. And so she was just like, I sat there and I tried not to do it because I do it all the time whenever we're watching movies. I look over at her, I'm like, just to see what her reaction is. So I tried not to do that because she was just like, don't look at me and then poke me and everything like that when we're watching the movie. And I was like, okay, I'll try not to. So I was just looking out the corner of my eye the whole time, like, how's she reacting? Does she like this? But it was too
I
funny
do the
too.
exact same thing. I just did that recently for Infested because I had
no, I
seen
won't watch that.
I can't remember which festival I watched that for, but I watched it for a festival. And then when it came out on Shudder, I made my husband watch it, who is majorly arachnophobic.
Yeah, I
He
am
fought
too.
me on it and was
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to watch it. I was like, you're gonna watch it. And so like there were a few times where I like subtly pulled out my phone to record him when I knew something was gonna happen.
You are evil.
It's such a good movie though.
I am not watching that. I'm not watching that one or Sting. Oh man, I could
See, and he watched Sting without an issue. Like, I mean, obviously there are parts of it that are scary, but like he didn't fight me on that one, and he watched it and enjoyed it. So like, if you're going to watch one of them and you're arachnophobic, Sting is easier to handle.
I couldn't handle the trailers for Sting when we would go to the movies and they would show a trailer for Sting. I was just like, nope. I would look away and just kind of like look down. I was just like,
and it's like,
I can't watch that.
I think they're both fun movies, but like,
I'm sure they're great.
Infested honestly would fit really well with these two films, just because again, it's like a group of young people and it's like fun, and then when the horror starts, it really starts.
Yeah.
But it's also I keep describing Infested to people as arachnophobia meets Attack the Block with just a hint of Wreck.
Okay.
And
I mean, they both sound like interesting movies. If they weren't spiders, I think I'd have a much easier time with it. But I can't stand spiders.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just. No.
So you're saying that you're not going to do a spider double feature as part of it?
No. Yeah, if you're waiting for me to do a spider double feature on the show, it's probably never going to happen. I can't even go back and watch stuff like Eight-Legged Freaks or anything like that.
Oh, really? I love that movie.
I know I've seen that movie. But it's just, no, I can't. Like, I don't know. Just spiders just weird me out way too much. So.
Which like it makes like I get the fear behind them. But I also prefer spiders to like mosquitoes.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I am kind of allergic to mosquitoes. Like I get weird reactions when I get mosquito bites. So I'm like, give me all the spiders because that means there are going to be less mosquitoes around here.
Right.
That's also a really fun movie. I love that really awful 90s movie Mosquito.
Oh, that's funny. I don't think I've seen that one.
What's his name? Gunnar Hansen, the guy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, Gunnar Hansen. Yeah.
I almost said Lance Henriksen, and I was like, that's not right. That's a very different person.
That's very different. That's Pumpkinhead.
Yeah. Love him though, but
yeah.
That's such a bad movie, but so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a big bug in general fan. So like bug movies. Yeah, typically not something I'm going to go like, that sequence in the original Creepshow movie where all the cockroaches are at and everything. I can't stand that sequence either. I watched that, I don't know, a couple of years ago and it just was like, I still can't handle that. I watched it. It just was too much. I was just like,
See, and with that, I feel like when they're small, it's scarier to me than when they're big.
Yeah.
So
like, when they're big, you're just like, well, there's nothing like that in the real world.
Yeah. Well, and also
unless you're in Australia.
even in real life, like I'm less freaked out by tarantulas than I am little spiders, just because like they disappear really easily. And
Yeah.
we actually recently had it was actually the night we watched Sting. There was a spider on the
Oh
ceiling
no.
of our bedroom, and it was a little one, but like
Yeah.
it was right above where our heads are in the bed. So we were like,
Yeah.
well, crap, we have to try to get it, because what if it like falls on us during the
Lands on
night
you.
or something?
And then it
We
fell when you tried to get it, didn't it?
Yep, and we could not find it. We basically dismantled our bed and our bedroom trying to find it.
I've
Could
so
not
done
find
that
it.
before.
And we were like, well, I guess we're sleeping in the guest room tonight. And as we were putting everything back, I spotted it. Like it somehow found a crevice in a place where we had already looked. And luckily we
Yeah.
found it and
Yeah.
killed the thing.
Yeah.
But
Oh
like
man.
it was really funny. And the fact that it happened the night we watched Sting, I was like, this is like a viral marketing thing going on
Right.
here.
Right. They're like, we know she's gonna watch that tonight. Let's
Yeah.
send in the spider. Yeah, no.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
see, like if it had been a big spider, I wouldn't have had a problem because I would have been able to find it and get rid of it
Right.
sooner. But the little
Yeah.
one, it
Yeah.
really did disappear for a while.
Yeah. Oh, no, thank you.
No.
Give me the ghosts or something else. I can watch those all day, every day. Bug movies, spider movies. No, can't do it.
Mm-mm.
It's a little too real for me.
Yeah.
A little too real world. So, but yeah, these movies are a lot of fun. It was interesting to watch them back to back like this. I watched them on 2 separate days, but within close time frame.
Yeah.
But it was interesting too because I didn't end up watching Talk to Me until after I went to the theater last night and watched In a Violent Nature, and I saw the TV Glow. So it was a.
I still need to see I Saw the TV Glow. I really want to see
Oh,
that.
you haven't seen that yet at all?
Not yet.
Oh, that I actually really enjoyed that one. I didn't like We're All Going to the World's Fair. I didn't just something about it was visually interesting, but beyond that it didn't really grab me. So I was a little, when seeing the trailers for I Saw the TV Glow, I was a lot more cautiously optimistic about it because I was like, this looks interesting, looks good. And being somebody who watched the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show, it's got some nice allusions to that. And so I was more keen into watching that one than the other one. So when I went to it, I was like, okay, I hope this movie's good. And it turned out to be fantastic. So
Oh, good. Okay.
So,
I'm
yeah.
definitely excited for that one. I'm bad. I don't get out to the movie theater that much because the one movie theater that's by us is terrible.
Yeah.
And
we have to drive 45 minutes away to go to the nearest one.
Yeah, that's like the minimum that we
The
have to
best
drive for
one.
a good movie
Yeah,
theater.
yeah.
Yeah. But I'm moving next month, so I'll be closer to a good movie theater.
There you go.
But yeah,
We're
until
moving
then,
specifically to get closer to the better theater.
Yeah. It's until then I have to rely on video movies coming to VOD.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
I wouldn't imagine it'll take too long for either one of these to come to VOD or streaming. Because I don't think, being smaller independent horror stuff, I think they'll probably show up fairly soon.
Well, and In a Violent Nature is
it's a Shudder movie, so
it's IFC Film Shudder, so which that one I did see, and I actually just posted my review for that one.
I like that one. I think I gave it 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 stars.
Yeah.
I thought that one was good. It's one of those things. I think it's interesting for what it does do. Which I don't think it's reinventing anything. I've seen people talk about how it's like reinventing the genre and stuff. I'm like, it's good for what it's doing. So, but I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to reveal any spoilers. But there's and it's funny too because I saw somebody mention because some people have talked about the kills and stuff like that, and somebody mentioned how they don't understand why people are talking about the kills in the context of the movie, and I'm like, I get that. Don't get me wrong, because the kills aren't what's really the focus of it.
Yeah.
But I think you have to there's definitely some interesting kills in this movie. One in particular that I think people will gore hounds will like a lot. So
yes, that I know what you're talking about, and I'm not
yeah.
going to say anything about it. But after I watched the movie, I told my husband, I was like, I guarantee you, when the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards come around, it's going to win Best Kill of the Year.
Interesting.
Like, well, I mean, who knows? Something else could come out between now and then.
Yeah.
But as of right now, with the horror films that I've seen so far this year, I 100% believe that that's going to win Best Kill.
I saw a response to that because people have been talking about it since it's coming up. I got to see an early release of it last night, and I think it was Ariel Power Shab. She said she's like best kill of the year. I don't know. Terrifier 3 is still coming out, so she thinks Terrifier 3 could have better kills. I'm like, all right, maybe. I'm not a big fan of the Terrifier series myself, but it's okay.
The second one was okay.
It was better than the first for sure. Yeah.
That's another one where it's the building of the mythos. I like the building of the mythos.
Yes, that was again getting wildly off topic. Terror, because I don't think I'm ever going to have Terrifier on the show because it's not my jam. Where that first movie was just gore and weirdly misogynistic, especially from people who don't seem to be misogynistic in their own personal selves, and I don't know for sure, but from everything I've seen, the people seem to be wonderful. The filmmakers seem to be wonderful people. It just was very not what I would expect. And then the second one kind of still had that to it a little bit, but it really delved into the mythology and the lore a lot more. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm liking. I'm liking where they're going with this. Like, tell me more of this if they do more of that. But it felt like Terrifier 2 was almost a little too long too at times. And it went a little too far in telling us weird stuff. So, and it's fine. Like, I'm gonna see Terrifier 3. Probably not at the theaters, but we'll see. And then we'll and see how that expands that even more so, because I'm hoping, that's my hope, is that we're going to get more of that story and lore more than even anything else.
Which I won't say anything about it because it is a newer film and I don't want to spoil it for people. But once we're done recording, I want to talk to you because I thought the film was going in a specific direction. And then when I realized it wasn't, I was like, well, crap, what I thought was going to happen was actually a lot better than what did. They should have had me write the movie.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but no. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
At least it had a good final girl. I really liked the girl in that one. She was great.
Yeah, in Terrifier 2. Yeah. I'd like to see more of her, especially if she pops up as more in more horror for sure. That'd be really cool.
I think she's going to be in the third one, isn't she? Didn't I hear that?
Oh, probably. I imagine she will be. I mean, the whole mythos is built around her and him. So I think if they don't, then it's a really bad missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's all I've got on these two movies today. So unless you have something else, we can go ahead and wrap up.
No, I think, like I said, I think these are a good combination of fun and horrifying.
Yeah.
And I think that they're kind of, I don't want to use the term gateway horror necessarily, because obviously, especially with Talk to Me, it gets like really intense. Yeah. But I feel like this is kind of almost a good transitional horror. Like, once you've gotten through some of the more gateway horror stuff like Poltergeist or things like that, and you're not ready for the really hardcore stuff, I feel like this is a good transition. Yeah. These films are a good transition for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good way of putting it. Where this one's where, like, both of these, I would say Talk to Me is probably the more brutal of the two.
For sure.
I would honestly say in some ways the Paranormal Activity series is a gateway horror, and kind of builds up to that stage, to that kind of midway horror, that you get to Talk to Me once you've seen some of that stuff build up, and then once your tolerance level, because horror is about tolerance. It really is, because like I have not been able to dive into like stuff like in the Fridge Extremity stuff like that, because that's too brutal for me. Like, I'm okay with brutal when it comes almost at a comedic level, especially when you're talking about something. Again, I'm a big Evil Dead fan. Those movies are tremendously brutal. But they come with a side of comedy in it to kind of like, kind of undercut it without being too much for
Mm-hmm.
normal person. But yeah, French extremities type stuff, I have not tried to even delve into that realm
Yeah.
because I just real life brutality, I can't watch. I can't watch that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. And so yeah, I think that if you're building up that tolerance and you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can deal with a little bit more violence and blood and everything, then yeah, and suddenness, then definitely talk to me. It's well worth the watch for that.
Yeah. And maybe that in that way, if you're thinking like it does have that extreme graphic violence, but it's not as like relentless as something like French Extremity, maybe it is a good thing that they didn't expand on some of those scenes that
Right.
I personally would have liked to see more of. But if you're thinking that it's something where, because both of these are clearly very much more targeted towards teenage audiences.
Yeah, even though both are rated. So,
yeah. So it's
think,
kind of, again, it's kind of that
early
transitional.
20s,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, it's probably between the target audience, I'm guessing, is like 17 to 25 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is kind of that almost like not only transitional from like more gateway horror to more extreme horror, but even kind of that transition from
Childhood
watching
to
stuff
adulthood.
more child like to more adult as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Definitely. All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Yeah, on most social media, you can just find me through my name at Molly Henery. Just make sure you don't miss the extra E in my last name, Henery. And then on Twitter, I am at Blogging Banshee.
Well, I appreciate you coming on again. We'll have to get you on a little bit sooner than once every year, because I have a lot of fun talking to you. So that'd be really fun. So
yes, always
all
love
right.
coming on. So I'm happy to join whenever.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks again to Molly for joining me. Next week, Violet Hammond returns with her daughter Daisy to talk about Werewolf by Night. Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.